I want it to be. I'll make sure. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. We don't start till 6, so while you're waiting, grab your popcorn and your ice cream, and we'll be with you shortly. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Casually Conducting, where we casually conduct conversations about everything and anything. I'm this week's host, Simon, and I'll be talking to you today about the amendments of the United States.
Gotta be more specific than that.
Of course, the first five. I mean, we're not going to talk about all of them. What, do you think we have time for that?
I think so.
But yeah, we'll be talking about the first five amendments. And then whenever we get done with that, we'll swap over and talk about Parker. He's got a topic.
Bring the topic today of the art of tattoos and how they have become controversial in today's society.
I think we've got a good little idea that what we're going to talk about set up for this week. So if we've got any audio issues, let us know. We're doing the same thing as last week, but with a little bit of a different idea, and I think it's going all good. All right. So we will be starting today with the First Amendment, okay? Freedom of religion and press. It says, and I quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment or religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. All right, essentially what that, we'll go over this first part. I know this sounds more like a seminar than it does a conversation, and that's okay. We got to start somewhere. It'll devolve as we go on. It's okay. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. So that means essentially Congress cannot respect the church, or no, Congress cannot praise the church in any of its laws, or any church.
I think it's more so Congress itself should not be able to put their 2 cents in on what goes on in the church.
Put their dirty little hands on it.
Because it's like how we talked about last week, religion spans amongst many beliefs for different people. You got Christianity, atheism, Satanism, you got Islamics, you have Jewish people, even so far as Buddhism and was it Taoism?
Yeah. That's true. Essentially, it's just saying that it's its own private entity, and the government cannot put its hands on it. That will keep it separate from corruption on a government-based level.
Thank you, Raymond, for the feedback.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, so on to the second one, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press.
So it's essentially just saying
they can't silence us, we can't silence them.
Yeah. For any reason whatsoever. So if there's something that they hate that is true, let's say a defamatory statement that is true, they couldn't say anything about it. They wouldn't be able to stop us from conducting that statement or conversation. Same with the press. Wouldn't be able to stop the press either.
It's like what's going on between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Yeah.
Everybody was going around for years and years saying how bad of a person Johnny Depp was, when in reality we all know he's a good person.
Yeah.
I mean, he has had a bad past, but I mean, we all have bad pasts. Or not all of us.
No, that was really the demonization. I actually think that what the media has done with that situation is manipulated it into a talking point about how men are bad.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's actually, in this situation, the other way around. She actually beat on him and admitted to it.
It's coming into the light where the other side of gender stereotypes in the case of men is coming more to light. Because it's gone on for years, but nobody's ever said anything about it.
Well, that's because we've had our strict boundaries. You know, women don't go to this side of the park, and men don't go to this side of the park. Metaphorically, of course. But now it's getting to now we're getting into a society where those kind of walls are breaking. So we're being able to experience and conduct conversation about that specific idea.
Just on to the next one.
Yeah. And the next one is to petition the government for redress or grievances. And that means that if we speak up against the government,
which we have the right to do,
which we have, everyone has the right to do, no matter what. They cannot
overthrow a tyrannical government.
We do, but they cannot stop us from saying anything about the government at all, or protesting publicly protesting against the government or the government's ideas and such.
I mean, non-violently, of course.
Of course.
Because
peaceful.
Non-peaceful protest is kind of where we've gotten now as a society. Different. And I'm not saying this on a racial bias, no nothing, but Black Lives Matter protest, for example, it started out for a good cause. Because for the longest of time, and it still continues, police brutality. But it's not we can't look at the police as being brutal. It's a case-by-case basis. Not all police officers are bad.
That's very true. It's really a situational thing, like you said, case by case. Because if we get into a part where, let's say there's a policeman shoots another individual, and he had a pack of cigarettes he was pulling out of his pocket, sure, that police was not in danger because of the pack of cigarettes. But he doesn't know that. In that really strict situation, he has no clue what he's pulling out of his pocket. That provokes the police officer to defend himself, even though there is no weapon in the big picture. And accidents like that do happen. And nobody's going to deny that they don't happen, because they're going to happen no matter what.
And it will continue to happen.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what else are you going to do whenever it's a dangerous situation? You have a person who's being hostile with you, makes a quick and sudden action towards his waistband.
Yeah.
And goes to pull something.
You can't just take a flip on that, like, oh, it's fine. Like,
do I shoot him? Do I not shoot him?
You have to react immediately.
But then again, if he didn't do those actions, he would have never been put in that situation.
That's very true. That's why it's good to effectively work with the police, even in situations where you know that you have done nothing wrong whatsoever.
Like, for example, you're doing something illegal. Police tell you to stop. You stop. You leave with your life.
Yep.
You may be in jail for a couple of nights, or you might even be going to prison. But you still have your life.
Yeah.
But now you're in a situation where the police officer tells you to stop, and you don't stop.
Then you have a problem. A physical problem that will escalate.
And it will escalate.
Speaking of that, we've got the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Now, this isn't us talking about having a big old bear in our hands.
The right to arm bears.
Exactly. You can't just give guns to random bears. I know that was a bad joke, but you just gotta stop it. Russian polar bear attack.
You ever hear about the situation where a grizzly bear got into like a bunch of cocaine and become like the world's most vicious predator for like 30 minutes?
What? No. What? Okay, you're gonna have to explain about that. What?
All right.
While he's pulling up, I'll go ahead and go on this. So the Second Amendment states, regulated militia being necessary to security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is a verbatim quote right there.
Right here. The bear that ate 70 pounds of cocaine. It's a true story. On September 11th, 1985, an old man in Kentucky woke up and went outside where he found the corpse of a man in his driveway, which would have been an unusual start to a Wednesday even if the corpse wasn't wearing a bulletproof vest and strapped to a parachute. Let's skip down a bit. Its stomach was literally packed to the brim with cocaine. The medical examiner who looked inside the animal's stomach told Kentucky for Kentucky, there isn't a mammal on the planet that could survive that. Cerebral hemorrhaging, respiratory failure, hypothermia, renal failure, heart failure, stroke, you name it, that bear had it. He became the apex predator of the world for a solid 30 minutes.
Oh, because he got high off of a whole crap.
No, he got vicious off that cocaine.
That's horrible. We need to stop littering our cocaine everywhere.
Yeah, keep your cocaine in line, folks.
Don't litter your cocaine.
Small lines. No, I'm kidding.
Remember, snort small lines, not large.
Alright. Back to the Second Amendment. The right to bear arms.
Let's start from the beginning. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Now that says an individual state. This isn't talking about the entire it is talking about the entire United States, but this is talking about a specific state's freedom.
And like
the
denomination of states where guns are legal.
Exactly. It also says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is a statement. That is not a question. That does not have anything else in it. It's not hard to understand. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That means if Parker right here, if I give him a gun, the government should not be able to just take it away, because that would be disarming him of his Second Amendment, whether it is his gun or not. I'm pretty aggressive with this. I think our guns. I think we should go to Walmart and get a gun for $50. You know, that's my opinion.
I mean, what gun that costs $50 is going to be any useful to you?
That's fair.
Cheap stuff ain't good, and good stuff ain't cheap.
That's fair, but I mean, it's still a right we should be able to have, in my opinion. You know, I think we should be able to get whatever guns the government. Okay, let's see here. We shouldn't be able to have mass weapons of destruction. You know, like we shouldn't be able to have nukes, in the public. But if there is a situation,
good stuff cheap.
If there is a situation where the government has a weapon that could be used against the people should have the defensive equality.
If anything, they should have the awareness as well.
Yeah. That's a different topic. Government keeping secrets away from the people.
Yeah,
but
because they probably do have stuff like that already, and we just don't know about it.
Area 51, you know, the high alien babes. You know what I'm saying?
We go to Area 51 and steal me an alien son. We'll be the first one to develop an alien fetus.
But no, what was I talking about? Frig. But yeah, if the government has a
weapon of mass destruction,
let's say the government has a tank, okay? If the government has this tank, the people should have tank-penetrating rounds to defend against the government.
The main reasons we have the Second Amendment, you know, just in case the military goes rogue or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is why we have it. It's not a main reason. It is just why. Our ancestors fought and rebelled against the British and left that for us for that specific reason, because it happened to them. They didn't want it to happen again. Now, it does have perks such as hunting and self-defense against an individual or group. But it wasn't intended for that. I mean, it was intended for it, but it wasn't specifically intended for it.
I don't think the United States military all at once is just going to go rogue, though.
It won't. And I think we've actually already seen signs of it doing so, because all the good people are going to leave the military. Because this has already happened. All the good people have been leaving the military because they disagree with the military's values, the government's values. And that's going to leave us at a weird little disadvantage, but an advantage at the same time. Because what will happen is the army itself, the people of the army will leave. Okay, that's decreasing the army size. But at the same time, everyone in the army would be for the army. So they will do what the government says. That in turn makes the army more pure in a negative way.
It makes it less acceptable for people to drop out in times of great importance.
It's just the fact that it sets up
a strong wall of defense, both mentally and physically.
It divides the right from the left in the army, leaving it completely radicalized to the left. Because the right people, they don't want to deal with it. They'll just leave, because they don't want it to escalate.
Right.
But as soon as it does escalate, they're not going to be in the military. It's just going to be the left side that's in the military. Because all the right didn't care. They hated the stuff on the left and rebelled. It's just a little weird situation that I thought of and noticed. It actually talks about it in this book. It's like 99 Days or something like that by Glenn. What's his name? Glenn something. But it's essentially a survival story about what in the future could happen. But and it's a really good book. It goes into really good detail about the government, because the man who wrote it, Glenn something, was a general, I think.
It's not Glenn Quagmire. Giggity.
I'm thinking it's like Glenn Beck, but I think it's 199 Days. I think that's what it is.
I say 99 Days is bringing up a romance novel. No, 199 Days is the Battle for Stalingrad.
God, I can't remember the name of the book then. Oh well, but there is a book out there that goes over the corruption of the government and the essentially end of the society as we know it.
The end of the world as we know it. Hey!
Exactly. And it just goes through and deals with all the problems that happens to cause. But back to what we were talking about. It also says a well-regulated militia is necessary for the free state. We kind of skipped over that a little bit. What is a militia, Parker? What do you say?
Militia to me is a small group of people that are armed for a designated purpose.
I can agree with that. That's a pretty broad general statement that pretty well talks about what it is, describes it. So that's essentially saying that all states can have a well-regulated militia.
Militia is defined as a military force that is raised from the civil population to supplement a regular army in an emergency. A military force that engages in rebel or terrorist activities in opposition to a regular army. All able-bodied civilians eligible by law for military service.
This is a lot of military. And when we talk about military, you think about the government, but it doesn't have to be governed by the government. It is a ideal by the people, made for the people, to resist against any altercations that might come the state's way. It just keeps the state sane and safe, eliminating factors of fear and creating a more personalized defense against intruders. than the government's army would.
Even when you do form a militia, it doesn't have to be anything political or military related.
It doesn't. No. A state can form a militia to go out and plant trees. Now you're not going to see it happen, but it could. It's not against what it would be.
Mr. Beast wants to know your location.
Continuing on to the Third Amendment, I'd like to read that one off.
Yeah, Amendment 3, quartering of soldiers. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So basically what this here is saying is you can't be forced to stay somewhere you don't want to.
No, that is not what that's saying. That is saying that in the time of a military action, you cannot be forced to keep military individuals at your location.
That's right.
So you can decline having military soldiers live at your house. Back in the 1940s, the end of World War II, or in World War II, it was maybe a little after. I can't remember. This happened a lot, and military soldiers were actually no. It was during the Sorry, I'm getting my wars mixed up. A revolution between the two sides of the United States. They would be forced to house the army in their houses, and the civilians didn't like it.
Platoon or whatever said so.
Exactly, and it was abused heavily.
It's like we're taking your house for the war, basically.
Exactly. I don't think they could kick you out, but you were forced to feed 30 people in one house. And a lot of people couldn't. It did not work out well at all.
That actually, I can't get my words right here.
Okay.
Backfired on the opposing side. Because there was a woman that single-handedly took a platoon in her house.
Didn't she poison the food or something? I know what story you're talking about. I remember going over it in school, but I can't remember the name of it.
They all got shot or something.
Yeah, that's right. Because at night she took all their guns and stuff. No, it was the enemy side she disagreed with, I think it was, and they were living there. And what had happened was she, at night when they all fell asleep, disarmed the army.
Audio cut out. I can't find it.
Audio's back. We have no clue what the frick just happened, but we're back. But yeah. Now we got the other piece of that. Without consent of the owner, so of course we know what that means. Nor in time of war. That's talking about when the martial law. When martial law comes in, the government cannot say, we're living at your house, you need to get out.
Yeah, but in martial law, that means that any outside government can impose their views on us.
That's true. But that's the whole point of the First and Second Amendment. Majority, the Second Amendment.
You can remember the big scare back when Barack Obama was going to call martial law when he was out of office, about to leave office?
Something like that. I remember that too. That was a strange scenario. We were both pretty young when that happened. God, we were
elementary school.
Yeah, I remember when Barack Obama got elected. I had this distinct memory of us being in kindergarten and looking at the TV because we had this big old box TV on this roll thing, and we had it brought in, and we were all sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, and and we were watching the election happen. live in school. I just thought that was cool as freak.
Whenever Donald Trump got elected in the office,
Yeah,
I was
I did
in
too.
8th grade, I think. Jason Patterson's class. Jason Patterson was one of the best history teachers.
Yeah.
He always had a way to make class fun. And by God, he loved Eugene Talmadge.
Did you find that story about the woman that?
I did not.
No, okay.
It's probably going to have to go back in a history book somewhere.
Yeah.
You going to go on to Amendment 4?
Yeah, we'll go on to Amendment 4. Let's see here. Search and seizure. Now, this isn't the type where you fall on the ground. This is the one where they steal your stuff for fun reasons. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated at all. And no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
That statement right there is like why we have warrants today. Because, sorry, I gotta stay hydrated.
Got enough?
No, I got water.
Drink your cheese, kids. It's good for you. Sorry. Continue.
Sorry, this is awful. But it got to a point where people, or I don't even know, the education system is the finest example of mass formation psychosis, especially at the colleges.
Oh, that is a good conversation to have. Good gosh.
Because, I mean, he's right.
It is, yeah.
Because in high school, you're set up for what your professors are going to act like. Until you get to your first class and the professor's like, hey, my name's Chad. I got a massive hangover. We're going to watch a couple videos for right now. But whenever you get to like the more old school professors and teachers, you can tell whether they're left or right.
Yeah.
And you gotta, I mean, you don't have to, but furthering your education, you have to sit there and listen to them lecture you. And I mean, you see that more in the history classes.
Yeah, we could have a whole friggin' video on mass formation psychosis, especially like he says in colleges. It's very prominent. It is a large majority of colleges in the entirety of the United States that are left leaning politically. There are very, very, very few that are right leaning. I know of none.
Rothschild started the education system to slowly indoctrinate society into the system, essentially creating mindless zombies who obey what they're told rather than think freely.
I mean, that's the best thing that they could have done. It's what keeps the society together.
How else are you going to keep people down?
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I think it's a bad thing.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, you keep them down up underneath.
Yeah, definitely.
It's where the government started to put their foot on the floor to give like the separation of.
Matthew Bianco. Studies and polls show that younger educated colleges are more likely
people that
lean left, which is actually correct. Every generation is going to lean a little bit more left than previous generations. You can see this in polls done throughout the years, that every single generation is more left leaning. But as they mature, there is a swap, and they slowly kind of regress back to right. Now, I'm not saying it's far right or anything, but it is a small inclination to the other side as they get older.
Right. It's more so you grow up with one side, and once you start understanding more and more about what the government does and what they will do, you kind of go from there to find what you really like about the government.
Especially when things don't go your way. I've gone through basic, school. I haven't been in college. I doubt I'm going to go to college anytime soon. But you go through basic school and they teach you in a really strange way. They teach you as sweet and lovingly and as caringly as they can. But to a certain point, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because they don't kick you in the butt to do what you need to do. If you don't do it, they're going to call your parents. And if your parents don't do anything, most of the time, even if your parents do something mild, that's not going to fix the problem.
Right.
The problem is that the school is lulling our kids into a idea where they don't need to learn anything. They're just kind of given everything.
Like
They're spoiled.
instant gratification.
Sure.
To where they feel like they got to have reward right then and there whenever they do something.
Yeah. That's not how it works. That's not how it should work.
Our schooling has really regressed in the ways of punishment and molding students.
Back to what Raymond said, mass formation psychosis. I agree with you. Because what they do is they started the school system, okay, I don't know how long ago, let's say 90 years ago. They started the school systems, okay? And then they slowly changed out over the years. Now, this is kind of conspiracy-ish, but they slowly changed out to more left-leaning politics. Maybe not specifically. Maybe it's the leaders of the world that think it's the best. But it will slowly.
Subtly.
Exactly. It happens subtly, and people don't notice. And by that happening, it literally, the old people who see the lies die out while their children are being indoctrinated in the lies and they can't tell the difference. And eventually it does move a lot in the long run, like it has. In the past 10 years, the right has moved left a good bit. I'm not sure how much it is, but a good bit. And the left has moved even farther left than the right has. So far left that there's this large group there's a small group of minorities with a very loud voice that are just so far left they see everyone else, even liberals, as extremists, when in reality they're the ones that's so far gone,
Right.
Sorry.
Talking about the whole schooling thing, that's my personal opinion. I formulated this one back when I was in high school, back in 9th and 10th grade. The only reason we really have school is just because we're not out on the streets contributing to the crime rates.
What do you mean by that?
And like, what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
Like, they got to put us somewhere where we're not being influenced too early by the outside world. I mean, you think about it. They keep us there for 7, 8 hours a day.
Do you mean the parents
or the government?
It's not required that you go to school.
Yes, it is.
Not a public school.
Yes, it is.
No, it is not.
True. It's
Not
not required.
School. You can go to a private school. You can go to a private school, you can go to a public school, a home school.
I was thinking about whenever you were enrolled in school, you have to show up to school. That's my bad.
Yeah. If you were homeschooled, this is where that kind of goes away. If you're homeschooled, your parents teach you your ideologies. You learn from your parents their specific values.
Right.
And that carries along with you.
And it's like they're molding a version of them combined.
Now, the government lies and says that the schools themselves are not biased. They just teach what they know.
That's a lie.
It's a lie. All schools, for a majority, 99.9% of schools, are extremely biased.
Because there's so much history that they do not teach us.
Not only that, they're a government product. They have to be biased in favor of the government.
That's because they've slowly implemented all of these Marxist ideologies that claim to lead to a utopian society, but always lead to the debasement of capitalism and ultimately their own destruction.
I agree.
I concur.
These problems are slowly like you said, ingrained into the children. And
It's the ideas of a free world.
it sounds nice.
Yeah, on
Don't get me
paper it
wrong,
sounds amazing.
Like, let's say communism. Communism paper, it sounds fantastic. They'll teach you this in economics. I mean, it does look really good. You hear it and you're like, wow, that sounds really good. But as soon as it's put into play, it's just so corruptible that it breaks almost immediately.
All your efforts are basically for nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't take into context the human free will, because as soon as you get somebody in power, they're going to want more power. I mean, they don't want to. They're already up there. They're big and bad. They don't want to be told what to do by anybody. So they'll, strive to gain more power and essentially shut everybody out and make them work for that person. And that is no bueno, no bueno at all.
There's no inside view from the people. It's all government control.
Yeah.
They're going to do what they think is best for you.
In a socialistic environment, it has to be government controlled to keep people from greedily steal each other's stuff. But the problem is, government is ran by people, and that makes people, the government, steal from the people all of their stuff. It just doesn't work at all. That's the end of the line.
It's like, you can even simplify it. It's like the thing of, like, communist jokes aren't funny unless everybody gets them. And it's like, as soon as you try to rebel in a communist environment, you're out. You're gone.
Yeah, but their ideology only works. I don't want to say it like that. Their ideology only works if the people themselves are pure enough in the Marxist ideology. Because as soon as you get resistance, I mean, look at every single
Case of communism.
Yeah, every single case of communism that has ever existed. There's always a radicalized government system that goes to murder its people to keep their people in line. It's a fear-based economy, and it just doesn't work.
You ever look at the video, Another Brick in the Wall? I think it's part 2. They Pink Floyd, they visualize the concept of what it means to be controlled, what it means to be told.
That's very true. It's another brick in the wall, like the song says.
Since the beginning of man, his downfall has since and always will be his selfishness. Man chooses to do the things he feels rather than sacrifice himself for what's right. The faith in our Father above.
Amen.
They usually fail as well.
The reason that is because it's temptation. And as soon as you get comforted in your physical identity, the physical world around you, you sit in a situation where you have no reason to care for anybody else.
I mean, and it can even go further to the fact of, we're born in a world of sin.
Yeah.
We're born in a world of evil. And if you look at that religiously or not, it's true.
That's the whole idea of Christianity, that humans themselves are born evil. People are born evil and not good.
What do you mean by that?
We're all sinners.
I mean, yeah, we're all sinners, but we're not. There's no guarantee that whenever you were born, the nurses looked at you and like, oh, this kid's ginger, he's gonna be a bad person.
Well, I'm not saying that you grew up to be a bad person.
I'm just saying we're grown up in a world where evil runs amongst us, whether we perceive it.
I'd rather say evil runs in us. Evil is a part of us that we need to learn to control and get and rip out of ourselves,
Sinful by nature, which Martin Luther made it a point to say that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what a lot of people don't understand about Christianity, is that we believe that people are just evil.
And our vessels, our bodies, we are sinful.
Exactly.
It's like whenever we get sick, it's because our bodies are sinful. Whenever we lust, it's because our bodies are sinful.
Now, I see a lot of preachers talk about this. They kind of dumb it down a lot, and it gets really irritating, in my opinion, because they'll go over you, or they'll go like, is anybody in this room not a sinner? And they'll really dumb it down. That really irritates me. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I understand why they would do that, but if they're speaking to a congregation they already know.
It's never been about religion. It's always been about faith. Our Messiah died not to give us religion, but to give us faith, an opportunity to be saved. Religion is a farce to further control, which is right.
Yeah, that's very true. Um,
Mass religion ruins people. I'm not just saying that in an all case basis, but
I think the misinterpretation or the purposeful misinterpretation of religion is where.
we start to not see eye to eye with each other.
Let me rephrase that. Of faith is where religion comes into play. As a Christian, you should see Christianity as a faith, not as a religion. But from an outsider's view, seeing it as a religion would be just like any other perspective, and that's where I was trying to get with that. But I do agree with you on the faith and religion aspect. There is a difference, and it should be let known.
We are all capable of doing bad things. Now, will we? May or may not, but we are all born with the capability to do evil things.
Of course.
To me, that kind of ties back in with temptation.
Yeah.
It's like, normally, you're not really compelled to do evil things unless you succumb to the temptation.
That's not true. I have to disagree with that. I think people are compelled to do evil things all the time. It's just that our faith gives us the power to kind of brush them temptations to the side.
Well, that's more so a sense of morality.
Oh, sure.
Because, I mean, we're not designed just to do evil things.
We are designed, in a biological sense, we are designed for self-preservation. But we get scared when we're about to die or in a tense situation. It is a natural reactionary fear system built into us to survive.
I mean, there's a reason why you do evil things, whether it be temptation, whether it be pleasure.
Most of the time it's selfish, though. It's for your own gain. And that is a big problem with everything. Everything is based off of a selfish point of view. And everyone needs to work on walking away from that selfish point of view into a better point of view.
This one's a long one. You want me to read it, or do you want to read it?
Yeah. We are of sin by nature, and therefore tempted by our flesh. Though through faith we are given a way out of temptation. That is very true. We're going to move on to the Fifth Amendment. I know it's crazy we were talking about amendments and got into that, but I mean, Christianity is rooted in America for this specific reason. So, you can read it.
Amendment number 5, trial and punishment and compensation for takings. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
That private property part could be also put back up to Third Amendment, quartering of soldiers to be taken for government use. Let's put this in the segments. This one's pretty long. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Sorry, I just had a brain fart right there.
Right there, they're saying unless you're the person that's being held accountable, you don't have to testify in court.
That keeps you from saying something. It gives you the ability to keep you from saying something you don't want to say.
Or necessarily saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's a better way to put it.
Except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger.
That's essentially saying if you are in the government based programs, so like if you're in the Navy or the Army or Coast Guard, you could be indicted for crimes then and there without all that previous talk, you know? At least that's what I'm getting to it. I'm kind of shaky on the understanding of this because my vocabulary is a little small today. So if I'm a bit wrong about that, just correct me. We'll read it.
Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. Basically, you can't be convicted of the same crime twice.
That's what I mean.
Like, you can't...
Essentially, the punishment has to equal the crime. So if you break somebody's finger, which is assault, you wouldn't go to jail for 900 years because that doesn't make sense. You know, it has to equal your crime.
You have to have a just punishment, a just and equal punishment.
Yep.
But Double Jeopardy has a great example of this. Great movie. If you ever get the chance to watch it, I personally would recommend watching it. About a woman who claims to have killed her husband. In reality, he faked his death. She got sent off to prison. Well, whenever she finds him at, I think it was Mardi Gras, right at the end of the movie, she shoots him in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened to her.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can't... This is going to sound really dumb. You can't kill the same person twice, and that's kind of...
Yeah. It's just that limiting factor. So, judges can't just unfairly say that you need unfairly say that you need a punishment that you are not liable for to that extent.
If you're on trial for allegedly killing Johnny and they let you go, and then they want to press charges again for killing Johnny, well, they can't. Double jeopardy, baby.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. So they can't keep you in an infinite loop of getting in trouble for. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like a reverse thing.
Like once you do your crime and your time, that's behind you in the past.
No, that's right there. Is like if you're on trial because they suspected you for killing them and they prove your innocence, they can't bring you back in court to try and prove the fact that you might be guilty.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. What's the next part? Where are we at?
Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property. Basically, what that's saying right there is you don't have to... I guess it's really saying you don't have to explain yourself.
That's the plead the fifth, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That's the plead the fifth. I don't want to say nothing.
Which, in reality, it just makes you look worse because you're basically telling them that you did it without giving them the words that you did it.
Yeah, but a judge can't do that. They have to, if you say you plead the fifth, no matter what, they have to assume that you are still, you still
prove your innocence.
Exactly. And if the judge, we saw this with the Kyle Rittenhouse case back a few months ago. The jury, or no, it was the defendant. What's the other one? Not the defendant, but the
person representing him?
Yeah.
The attorney?
Yeah, the attorney. Okay. The attorney was talking to the judge about how he was like pleading the fifth and how he was questioning that he was like, hey, I didn't do this. I plead the fifth. I don't want to incriminate myself. Yeah, the prosecutor. Okay, thank you. Prosecutor. And the judge called him out. He's like, do not question his Fifth Amendment. that puts you in the bad light when you question the Fifth Amendment as a prosecutor, because that is a right that person has. And if you question that right, you are um, essentially trying to break that right and look over it. Essentially, you
They
can't
can hold
judge
you in
it.
contempt for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I'm surprised people even doubted that he was gonna beat that case. Because I mean,
I'm not to an extent. Like maybe like a 50-50 to me because we have a lot of corruption,
we do.
you know.
Well, that's debatable. You can kill someone's straw man, which is essentially their identity on paper as a corporate asset and basically marking them as deceased, no longer identifiable.
What do you mean by that? Can you go into a deeper detail, Raymond?
I think he
Kind of elaborate a little bit more.
kill off somebody's identity.
That'd be defamation, though. Or do you mean in a literal sense?
Like in a literal sense, like where you wouldn't become Simon anymore.
That's the whole reason we're here. We're here to talk about everything, learn about everything, and I don't know everything. He doesn't know everything, so that's why we're here to learn. So thank you very much for that comment. That's a good little eye opener right there. Yeah, we can move on. That was the top 5 amendments.
No, we still got more to go on the 5th one.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
Yeah, I already said that last part. We already went over that last part. But this nor be deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process of law. That's a good one because that's going over the idea where you cannot be convicted of a crime that you may or may not have committed.
No, it's more so you can't be incarcerated.
That's what I meant. Yeah, not convicted, incarcerated. Essentially, public opinion doesn't matter in that moment because you still have to go over the fine details and go through the jury to make sure that you are not make sure you get what you deserve,
Basically, our birth certificate is a legal document
of ownership. So that means
we are slaves to the government on paper. Your straw is basically you on paper. They can kill you on paper, essentially.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
but I wouldn't.
Well, the reason we have birth certificates is because
this is legal documentation that we were born.
It's a number for the government to recognize us as a individual living in their parameters. Now that could be used for nefarious reasons, or it could be used for legal and understandable reasons, like oh God, what is it? I don't know. I'm thinking. Hold on. Like if you get an immigrant that illegally passes the border, identification is there to prevent immigrants from being here illegally. Now, if you have that documentation, then you're in no issue because you've got that documentation. But the problem lies whenever the government doesn't use that documentation for good stuff.
I don't think we're even slaves to the government because the government doesn't own us.
It does.
Not necessarily.
It does. We can't do anything that the government doesn't want us to do.
I mean, yeah, but the government doesn't tell us when we have to work. They don't tell us when we have to go to sleep. They don't tell us what we can't eat.
They do sometimes.
How so?
When we have to go to work and, for example, the lockdowns, the government told us what to do for 2 years.
Recommended.
And a lot of places they enforced it with law enforcement.
But that's your birth certificate is specifically used to register you as a corporate asset or legal tender. In the event that the government owes debt, you are the payment of said debt.
What is the worth of an individual, though?
on the black market, you can be worth a couple million.
I knew that was coming up. That's a weird comment right there, though.
That's my price on the black market. But I mean, the government can't sell us because
Maybe in a way they can. See how tech industries, they collect data on us and sell our information to other corporations to make money.
oh yeah,
Now they're
Yeah.
selling us in a sense because we use their products for free. For example, Google, the clicks on our screen they track and they sell that information and how you hover over stuff with your mouse, and they sell that information to advertise companies, and they use that information to target ads specifically at you.
right.
And that's essentially selling a person, you know?
And even so, corporations going in your browser history to give you said ads.
Yeah. Whether it's a private browser or not.
But no, back talking about the whole lockdown for 2 years, we didn't have to stay in our houses. It was just recommended.
In New York, you did.
That was curfew.
Yeah, exactly.
They can
You were-
enforce curfews,
Exactly. You
But-
have to stay in your house after a certain time.
but what they can't do is keep you in the state of New York.
Sure, I can agree with that. Yeah. Now they went crazy in Australia. You hear about what they did in Australia
Mhm.
during the lockdowns? They put people into quote unquote concentration camps. You were not allowed to leave your house for more than I think it was 30 minutes at one point. It was for a few weeks.
And what I didn't
For
even
30
agree with
minutes
was
at all.
when you seen the actions of police enforcement when people were sitting on their front porch.
That's I've seen that. That's crazy. You couldn't open a business for a long time, have a public open business in the United States because the government was shutting down businesses and would not allow you to perform the act of a business.
We're like cattle. Our life is worth a specific amount in the stock exchange. If you take your specific identification number, you can find your straw man's exact price on the stock market. But that's more so if you're
That's a virtual representation of what we are worth. That's what they're talking about. To the government, you know?
yeah, it's more so like the government wants to look at us like sheep.
Exactly. That's what they're saying, you know, with the cattle and everything.
In some cities in China, people are locked in their homes with no means of collecting food, water, groceries, and etc.
It's crazy in China. They're locking, I think it's oh God, where is it? Beijing. In Beijing, they have people starving to death. They are barricading them inside their houses and letting them starve to death. It's crazy in Beijing. I think it's Beijing. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's somewhere over in the vicinity of China.
But now, in the government as a whole, they didn't really do anything. If anything, it was the smaller governments doing all the work.
What do you mean?
Because I mean, like the whole mask mandate. It was a CDC
Yeah, it was
recommendation.
It was a recommendation by the CDC that the media broadcasted without cease, constantly broadcasting it and spinning it where it was less of a recommendation and more of a demand.
It was more so.
It's a big old conspiracy that's going on here. You know, it was
They
crazy.
never gave us proper research on the masks,
They told us not to wear masks.
and then they told us to wear masks.
And then they told us to wear masks. And then they told us not to wear masks again. And then they told us to wear 3 masks at once.
And then again, we could be in 6 feet of somebody just as long as it wasn't within or as longer than 9 minutes, because 10 minutes you have to be quarantined. And it's like whenever cities enforce mask mandates, that's a smaller government,
That's the local government, yeah.
right? But even then, there were no laws enacted saying you had to wear masks.
Sure. But there was, and that's the problem I'm talking about. There was enforcement by cops for stuff like this, you know?
I mean, they got a job to do.
Sure, they have a job to do, but there shouldn't be enforcement of a recommendation, you know?
But not in places where they did mandate lockdowns where you couldn't leave your house or stand on your front porch. That was a law of which was enacted.
And that's stupid. I think that's stupid and should have never happened. And I think there are lawsuits that should be made.
There are lawsuits that should occur over something like this.
Oh yeah, 100%. And there are lawsuits that have occurred. I don't know what happened to them because the media tries to keep that under as much dirt as possible so you can't see it.
Okay, that's a whole different topic too.
Yeah.
What the media actually shows us and what doesn't show us.
Yeah, let's talk about the corruption of our. Yeah. Gosh.
Corruption of newscasts. Look at the Georgia Guidestones.
We will definitely look that up right now. We're about to move on to our next story, though. Really, Parker's story. He wanted to do this. We'll be talking about. I'll let you take it off.
I want to talk about tattoos right after I look up what. Oh, the Guidestones. The Granite Monument in Elbert County.
Never heard of it. It's
the long-lasting set of rules should the world ever end, basically.
Never heard of this. What?
A set of 10 guidelines is inscribed on the structure in 8 modern languages, and a shorter message is inscribed at the top of the structure in 4 ancient language scripts.
That's cool as frick. How to survive the zombie apocalypse with guidestones. Featuring guidestones. In Chinese, Japanese. Ooh, look at these.
I kind of want to see that.
I do too. That sounds awesome.
If you ever want to get something to do and you're around Elbert County, go look at the Georgia Guidestones. But I want to transfer over to tattoos. Tattoos have become very controversial.
They've always been controversial.
Well, I mean, there was a time whenever they were accepted. Back, because it was like,
I think this is the time that they're accepted. I think tattoos right now are more accepted than they probably have ever been.
Again, it's kind of like a case-by-case basis, really. Because, I mean, your local Joe Blow on the street might look at your tattoo and say, hey, that's cool.
Well, yeah, that's talking about the individual. I'm talking about the general aspect of tattoos.
But people with tattoos still get evil looks. Whether it's a neck tattoo, arm tattoo, face tattoo, should you even have them. I personally would never get any.
I'd never get a face tattoo.
You'd have to pay me a bunch of money to get a face tattoo.
I'll do it for $5.
No. Not that cheap. My back tattoo was almost excruciating.
Almost excruciating? Or was it excruciating?
Oh, I mean.
Did you ever get it finished?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I don't see how anybody can stand a face tattoo. But it's to the point, whenever you find out somebody has a tattoo, you instantly get either A, good looks, or B, bad looks.
Stereotypes.
Right.
Stereotyping of people with tattoos. I hate that.
The bald, bearded man covered in tattoos. Oh, he's evil. He don't need to be around nobody. Stuff like that.
That's stupid. I mean, you could look like a thug and be the best person ever.
Matter of fact, there's a
you look like a thug. I wouldn't. You'd probably.
I do not look like a thug.
I'm just joking, man.
But there's a biker club out in Pensacola, Florida. Okay. It's a bunch of Christian people. Their basis on their motorcycle club, it's Christianity, literally CMC.
Yeah.
But they look like your average motorcycle club. Yeah. But
they got all the tattoos and everything, right. The leather with the spike helmets and everything.
Tattoos, the dark sunglasses, the black hats,
yeah,
the everything. But I mean, you don't really. I'm not gonna say you don't have a right to judge them, because I mean, we all judge. But it's more so people judge before they can actually get to know somebody.
People always judge before they get to know somebody. It's a habit that humans have to do. It's just something we do. I mean, everybody's gonna judge everybody on accident, even if they mean to or not. You know.
And it's like even going to biblical scripture about tattoos. Let me find the verse real quick. Old sewing desk over there.
I think generally tattoos have been accepted more in recent years because of the whole Me Too movement and all that crap that has happened. It it really muddied the waters and kind of blurred the lines on a lot of stuff. And
Judgment is to be carried out from a righteous manner. You can't do it hypocritically. That is right. You are not to judge somebody unless your faults are at the table. I firmly believe that.
I agree.
I learned that back when I was in elementary school. A lady used to tell me, don't look at the faults of others unless your faults are at the table.
We're talking about a instant judge. Okay, what I was talking about a moment ago is you can look at somebody and see, let's say, just their physique and everything, and be like, oh my gosh, that looks like a scary dude. And then you might, in your brain, be like, oh, just give it a chance, You'll have that sudden retraction of your judgment. Everyone will have that, no matter what. If there's some guy that looks real big, bad, and scary, and you just notice him, you're gonna be like, whoa, that's a big, bad, scary dude. But then you're gonna, depending on how you are, like if I saw a big, bad dude, I'd be like, wow, that's a scary looking dude. But I wouldn't base my actions off of that. I wouldn't like, oh, and tremble,
Like, oh, I can't trust him. Oh.
I can't trust that man. I'd go up to him if it required, and I'd say, hey man, how you doing?
Well, I mean, you're braver than I am because I'm not about to approach a large man. Because if he's larger than me, I'm definitely not approaching him.
But exactly, that's the judgment I'm talking about. You get that little bit of like, oh, I'm good.
I think
that's that unintentional
got violent,
unintentional judgment.
Violence,
Vibes,
underlying means, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. We all have that little bit of unconscious judgment we have. And of course we work on that. We don't want that to be our actions,
But going back to the verse in the Bible that air quote forbids tattoos is Leviticus 19:28. Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print or tattoo any marks upon you. I am the Lord. What do you think that means? Kind of clear cut, right?
It's pretty clear. I mean, God saying, or Jesus, is Jesus talking right here?
Yeah, Jesus.
Jesus is like, dude, respect my saying because you respect me if you respect what I say.
It was a teaching moment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, people take that verse for face value. You know what I mean by face value, right?
Yeah, exactly how it's said,
But do you know the foreground, the actual situation of where this teaching moment was happening?
No.
There's a bunch of Egyptian pagans doing this in like the remembrance of a false god. They were cutting themselves to make their pain more intense. And tattooing themselves, or remembrance of the dead, false gods.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily God or Jesus was saying don't do it, but I mean he did say don't make any print or tattoo marks, but
you think that he was talking to those specific individuals?
Yeah,
as a preventative measure, be like, hey guys, y'all shouldn't do this because it's bad for yourself.
That and right? More so, they're doing that in remembrance of a false god. Mm-hmm. You are not to purposefully mark your body, which is the holy temple. Any marking done purposefully is sinful. But am I doing it in remembrance of a false god? Am I doing it for my am I doing it to amplify my pain?
I think even if you did it to, let's say you got a tattoo of Jesus as a conversation starter, I think that would still be considered a sin. because Jesus would see your body pure as a better worship than a tattoo, because you'd be respecting the boundaries that he has laid down, you know?
But where so in the Bible does it say that if you have tattoos, you're not getting into heaven? Just boom, clear cut. If you got tattoos, you're going to hell.
Well, it's not that. It's that it's a sin, okay? All sins, no matter what sin you commit, give you that ticket to hell.
Right.
No, even if it is stealing a penny that somebody had just dropped and went back to find, and you didn't give them you're still stealing that penny.
Well,
you're still going to hell because you know you've done that thing which you shouldn't have done.
It's like stealing is the same thing as murder, is the same thing as lust. It's like what Caitlin Knowles just said, all sins are equal.
Exactly.
Doing it, period, no matter what you do it for, is sinful. If you purposely mark your body, you're purposefully committing sin. But
I agree with that.
it's more so, I like considering all perspectives. I rely more on the foreground of that situation. Having a tattoo is not binding you to hell. It's our unfaithfulness that we choose that sends us to hell. Which means that's exactly right.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. I guess I
Because I mean, we
didn't
sin.
explain it like I could have done. Yeah.
We sin, but even though we sin, it doesn't mean that Jesus doesn't love us any less.
That's very true. And I wasn't saying
Or
that he
it
didn't.
doesn't mean that Jesus loves us any less.
I was just saying that. Okay. Let's see here. So if we sin, okay, the whole point of sin is to avoid it at all cost. It's to test us and put us through situations where we are tested about our faith. And without sin, there would be nothing that would test us. So we use this, like what he said about the tattoos. We use the tattoos, okay? We try to avoid using the tattoos because it is sinful to do. We can still do it and get into heaven, but acknowledgingly going against something, even in a righteous sense, is still committing a sin. It's still going against what God had said or Jesus had said. Like, let's say you have a really good idea that would help millions of people, but you need to kill 100,000 people to do it. If you could cure cancer by killing 100,000 people, sure, curing cancer is pretty noble.
Yeah,
but you're not gonna kill 100,000 people to do it. That's gonna make everything you're working for look bad, right. And it's just gonna be bad in general.
Or it's like, if you press this button right here, it kills one person that you don't know, but you gain $1 million.
Ooh, I agree with that. I like what Raymond just said. Sin is lawlessness and disobedience to the direct guidelines / laws of our Father in heaven. I completely agree with that, down to the everything.
But it's like whenever people say that shaving your head is a sin, right here, Deuteronomy 14:1, ye are the sons of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourself nor make any baldness on your foreheads for the dead. We're not to cut our hair for people that have died. It's like, oh, my aunt died yesterday. I'm gonna cut my hair, all of it off, just for her.
I'd assume that'd be a improper use of the kind of. I got what I'm trying to say. I just can't think of it. The body, the temple, the body. Okay, yeah, the body is a temple. Okay, and it's used to carry out the word of God. Okay, and the actions of God. Now, if we take that and what is it? What would that be considered? Shaving your hair for somebody who has passed away. That'd be a act of remembrance. Okay, why would that be bad? Like, because that goes against what he said. He doesn't want us to do that because it is our temple. It is his temple. I mean, not our temple. That's a very clear distinction that needs to be made. And I might be
supposed to use our bodies in the works of glorifying God.
Yeah, exactly. And if we kind of glorify somebody who has passed away, then that's not glorifying God.
Right.
That's what I was trying to.
Somebody else.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. I couldn't get that out.
Your body temple is meant to be offered as perfect and clean sacrifice to worship. Yeah, it's like getting someone's death date tattooed on yourself. You're getting that tattoo in glorification of when they died,
Exactly.
as a part of remembrance.
Exactly. And you couldn't even do that with Jesus because that is still going against what he said about tattoos, about markings on the temple of God.
But what do you mean sacred? Your body temple is meant to be sacrificed as a perfect and clean sacrifice to worship. What do you mean by sacrifice to worship?
You're sacrificing your selfishness for selflessness.
True.
You're giving up your body's wants for the cleanliness of the temple to keep it clean. You know how you want to eat all the time. It's a sin to be gluttonous.
Right.
You don't eat all the time. You give up your selfishness to keep your body, the temple, clean. You know? But yeah, tattoos definitely have been accepted a lot more recently. And by recently, I mean in the past few decades. I don't mean like in the past year, because that's a slow process. Because in the early 2000s, people were definitely like, I'm not going to hire you if you got a face tattoo. Simple as that.
Right.
And
To the comment earlier, we are no longer held to the Hebraic laws, Old Testament laws such as not poking your skin, tattoos, and not eating pork chops. Christ fulfilled the law. Do you mean Christ fulfilled the law, or do you mean Christ came and changed the laws? What do you think? Oh yeah, you don't exactly sacrifice as in kill yourself, but you sacrifice your life living to worshiping our Heavenly Father.
Oh, exactly. You give up your selfishness for selflessness.
It's like you give yourself to God rather you give yourself to this world.
Exactly. That is a way better way of putting it than what I did.
You live more for
Him than you.
spiritual things rather than material things.
Exactly. You don't have to be a material girl to go to heaven. That's what you're saying.
Material girl.
But yeah.
I know that translation, how I perceive the Bible, it may not be the same. It's not universal.
I mean, we all see things the way we're gonna see them.
And aren't the Old Testament laws irrelevant?
To an extent, they are. There are some that are not.
But yeah, right.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
They have been clarified on in the Newer Testament.
Matthew Bianco, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Matthew 5:17. Thank you for that. When he died on the cross, sinless, he fulfilled the law. But
I'm not quite understanding what fulfillment would mean in this situation.
not one. That's supposed to be tittle or title?
Title.
Not one title of the law shall pass until heaven and earth pass. The law still applies. We are not bound to the curse of the law. But back to what I was saying, whenever Judgment Day comes and my soul leaves this earth, whether it be natural causes. It's just my time.
Oh, I see what. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
It
you're good.
clicked for me. So what Raymond here is saying, not one title of the three law shall pass until heaven and earth pass. The law still applies, but we are not bound to the curse of the law. Essentially, what he's saying is Jesus died. The Old Testament still applies, but because Jesus sacrificed himself for us, it gave us a way to circumvent the punishment of the laws by going through him. So essentially, no matter what, we were already going to hell. But he gave us an option out of that curse. That's what he's trying to say.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Read Paul's letter to the Romans. If it was not law, then there would be no lawlessness.
Matthew Bianco. Basically, we can dumb it down to the great commandments: love God and love others. Raymond Noodle's correction: if there was no law. But I'm gonna have to talk with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit about my actions upon earth and how I've lived my life.
Yeah, that's a completely personal thing there. That is a, yeah.
But I'm still probably gonna go on the basement of, the whole Egyptian pagan ship thing.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, there's nothing anybody can do to say anything otherwise. I mean, they could say otherwise, but if you want to continue that way, that's your choice, and it must be respected.
But
Same with me.
Even in a medical sense, tattoos aren't permanent.
Sure, I could go with that. They're not literally permanent.
Because, if I can get this removed tomorrow if I wanted to. I could get all of these removed tomorrow if I wanted to.
Yeah, you could.
Because all it is ink in the subcutaneous layer of your skin that's residing there.
Well, they used to be permanent. We used to not have that technology.
Yeah, they used to be permanent.
And even then, it still technically wasn't permanent. If you got a tattoo when you were really young, your body still dissolves the tattoo. That's why the tattoo loses its color and kind of fades and lightens up a bit,
Yeah.
Because your body is cleaning itself. But laser removal of tattoos is fairly new. I'm not sure how fairly new. I think in the 1990s it was invented or something like that. I think it's that kind of new. I don't know if it was before that though. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so don't quote me on that. But I think it is fairly new like that.
It's like you see preachers and priests with tattoos.
Yeah. See, that could also be the idea of a sinful life reverted into a Christian life.
Devout Christian way of life.
Yeah, exactly. They could have done something in the past and been saved and they've been reborn, but they still carry those scars of sin.
And it's like, my tattoos don't interfere with me talking about God.
Yeah.
They never will. And I got them, not getting rid of them. And I know that if it's right or wrong, whatever it is, I'm going to have to either atone for it or I'm going to have to, talk with God.
Have to deal with it.
Yeah, we're all going to have to deal with it. Not even if it's not just tattoos, just our actions here on earth.
Everybody's choices has consequences.
How faith has impacted your life, and what you did to try to spread the word of God.
I completely agree.
But get tattoos, don't get tattoos. It's whatever you want to do.
In the Christian sense, I have to say, follow the book, But in a human sense, yeah, do what you want. I'm not here to judge you. No one's here to judge you, and if they are, they don't need to. In a Christian sense and in a non-Christian sense.
Because even if the old laws in the Old Testament are, air quote, irrelevant, they still existed at one point.
Yeah, of course.
We still have to reflect back on that.
We got to reflect and see why they existed and understand the pros and cons and the reason they were created and the reason they were, set into the standard they are now.
We were held in custody under the law, locked up until faith should be revealed. So the law became our guardian to lead us to Christ, that we might be justified by faith. Now the faith has come. We are no longer under a guardian. Galatians 3:23-25. My judgment sin is the same amount of sinfulness as you getting a tattoo. And that's exactly right. All sins are equal. But make sure you are comfortable with it and are prepared to take consequences for said actions, whether it be tattoos, whatever you do.
Yeah.
But
take your time with that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Contemplate it, pray over it, see what you need to do in your life and see if it's worth what you want.
We are now under the law of Christ, or Matthew Bianca, we are now under the law of Christ, not Mosaic law. Otherwise, it'd be a sin to eat a dirty animal pork. It would be a sin to get a tattoo, but it's not anymore. But then again, you still got to keep the Old Testament laws in consideration.
Well, that's what happens. What I was talking about earlier about some laws still apply. I would say that tattoo law still applies. Just like the 10 Commandments, they still apply.
Don't get tattoos. It's not whatever you want. Our life is meant to be used to worship our Father in all things that we do.
Yeah, as a Christian, I completely agree with that statement.
I do as well.
But on a personal level, but I can't judge others, or I don't want to personally judge others for something they want to do. Now, I could definitely dissuade them, just like you did, from getting tattoos. And in my personal opinion, don't get tattoos. I think it is a problem that will just come up in situations, Yeah, but I do also agree that it is still a sin to get a tattoo. Like I said, the 10 Commandments, we still go by them,
What do you mean not one tittle shall pass?
But yeah. I definitely agree that there's some talking points that there's some conversation that could be had about Old Testament laws applying to anything past the New Testament. Because like I said earlier, in the Old Testament, it did say you should not eat pork. Pork is a dirty animal. But in the Old Testament, you were also given the 10 Commandments, and we still go by those to this day.
I disagree. Christianity is choice. You choose heaven or hell. That's the thing about Christianity. You choose your path.
Yeah, that's more on the line of what I said from my personal belief.
Furthering the lines of no jot nor tittle, it's
title.
No, it's in the Bible. It is tittle.
Really?
It is. For I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, not one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled.
Pork makes the temple unfit for the Holy Spirit to dwell in. That's an interesting statement. Why? What defines a dirty animal? I know any hooved animal was dirty, but unfit for the Holy Spirit, is that the definition of dirty in this context?
Read my comment earlier. Paul writes that we were held by the law, but when faith came, we were no longer under it.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't not abide by it.
or even take it into consideration.
You could say that we're not under the Ten Commandments, but we still base our morals on that set of rules as a society because we need a ground point for there to be a structure of faith.
And that's what we set our morals as a person on. It's
Yeah.
what it's taught widely in church.
Yeah. But we are no longer under the curse of the law. That curse being that the law always brought death because man could not fulfill the law himself. Which would mean that Jesus came down to fulfill the law, aka do the correct thing, which gave us a way to save be saved.
Eternal life.
Yeah, exactly. He was literally an example, both literally and physically, metaphorically. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, I think we've had a good conversation today. I think we stayed on topic a good bit and then got lost a little bit, but also came back to topic. And I think we did a fairly good little hour 30 minutes because I gave us 10 minutes for us to start. So yeah, I think I've had a good day.
Yeah.
Good stream.
Good stream.
So
Good conversation.
Yeah. Thank you
Got some
everybody
knowledge in.
for giving us information that we didn't know.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining with us and talking with us. And
yeah, we enjoyed your conversations and opinions and facts, I guess. We're here to learn, just as everyone else is. So, well, thank you very much. You can do the outro if you want. Yeah, you didn't do it last time. I did it last time.
You did it last time?
Yeah, I did it last time.
Well, to all the viewers out there, I want you to have a good night, have a good week, have a good month, have a good everything. Be positive.